What's up, y'all? This week I am showing you how to build a small pond which would be perfect for goldfish or other small types of schooling fish. Let's go! So this is the area before. As you can see, it's a garden bed, and when you're digging ponds like this, you're going to want to make sure that you clear out, if it's in an existing garden bed, you're going to want to make sure that you're clearing out or transplanting all plants, like give yourself way more room than you think you need, because if you want to have a pond that's 8 by 11 when it's finished, you actually need to make sure that the boulders that you're going to be putting in the future can accommodate that. So as you're digging your pond, you're going to want to make sure that you are burying your pipe and thinking about where your biological filter, your mechanical filter, and all of these other various elements, the guts of your pond are actually going to go. Because the last thing you want to have happen is you get this perfect pond and then you're like, oh crap, the skimmer and biofalls are right on top of each other. That's no good. So now the thing you might be asking too is, what are you going to do with all this topsoil that you're digging out? Well, as far as the aquascape method is concerned, you actually want to reuse as much of that as possible to create a large fanned out berm that is going to then become your waterfall, which I will show you how to do later on in the video, so stay tuned. This shovel here is considered a spade, and so this is a long handle spade, and this is for cleaning the edges and the sides to make sure that they're basically as close to a 90-degree angle as possible. This is not really for actually moving earth. This is not as efficient. This shovel, which is called a spearhead spade, so this is, I guess, kind of confusing because it's also a spade, but you can see obviously that it's made for really getting through tough ground. I actually originally bought this to divide ornamental grasses that are big and established, because that can be a bear as well as clumping bamboo. But this guy is great for, basically, it's a little late for that now, but basically like setting that into the earth and jumping on top of it. Interrupting the riveting talk on shovels. Hey, it's important. Hey, quick favor if you guys could do for me is hit that subscribe button. It takes a lot to put these videos through filming and editing, and actually getting them up is a lot of work. So if you could hit that subscribe button, hey, it's free. I don't think they're gonna put a price on that, hopefully ever. It's free and it does truly help out the channel. So if you could smash that subscribe button and tap the bell, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to pond building. And then the one that we're all familiar with, the round nose shovel, is what I was taught its name is in college, is actually for clearing out all the little chunks from cleaning or anything like that, the overburden. And that's what's most efficient for this. In this heavy clay, again, your mileage may vary. You might have sand, you might have some other soil type that's easier to get through, but you will need this spade as well to cut the sides clean. Okay guys, you can see that the hole has made quite a bit of progress. Of course, this shelf that I'm standing on here still is needing compaction, especially because the soil higher up in the soil profile is going to be softer and more fertile if you're doing all the right things as a gardener. Hey, so in several of these clips, you do see me what appears to be barefoot, and yes, I did do some of this work barefoot, but I am very comfortable with it, and if you are not, please make sure to wear proper personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE. All right, let's get back into it. So I'm going to introduce a new type of shovel. The straight handle spade was not creating a perfect 90-degree angle between the wall of the pond and the bottom of the pond. And the thing is every gallon of water counts on a small feature like this. So an angled wall is going to really reduce water capacity. I've actually introduced a new shovel. This is called a transfer shovel. Is that you can really carve out these edges really perfectly. And the reason that in this case it's important to get a super crisp 90, or as crisp as you can get without going too insane, is because I'm using pavers in this case. And when you're using pavers and or other types of cut stone or manufactured stone, you need to make sure that your base is really level.
And the other thing that I'm noticing now that I'm really down here is that my final grade here is noticeably shallower than this side. And the reason, again, that's a problem is because of what I'm going to be using to cover up the liner. Also worth highlighting, guys, every single time I dig a water feature, it's fascinating to look at the topsoil profile. So my soil when I moved in 2022 was this. It's this awful, well, it's not awful because it's this pink clay that really is not, holds too much water, and it's clay. But in a little over 3 years, I have created, just with autumn leaves, a foot of beautiful topsoil. So you can see that the hole pretty much has been roughed out. So this is where I had before those squared flagstones, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I actually physically need a bridge for this pond, so I think right off the bat, giving you guys an important thing with your design is it's like, don't have a bridge going to nowhere. You know, because bridges take up a lot of space. Let me back up literally and sort of give you guys an idea of what's going on here. So this water feature I installed back in 2023. The birds love it. Currently I'm soaking some snowdrop bulbs before I plant them. With water features, what you really want is to have them be as visible and audible from as many locations inside the house. So this water feature is sort of the ending point to sort of my realistic design. So the pond is going to stop right about here. Now I have my skimmer out there, and that skimmer is going to be installed right about here where you see this iris versicolor. So today I'm going to be digging out the iris versicolor, and I don't think I need to dig out the mandevilla yet, but if I do, then oh well. And so this is a 1000 skimmer made by Aquascape. So this is, for this pond, really technically oversized. So we have to take into account all of these trees that are super young and will be dropping leaves into the pond. And not to mention too, the skimmer, not to mention, this is where your pump is housed. So obviously with your skimmer, there is sort of a diminishing like rule of rate of return sort of thing. But in general, oversizing the skimmer maybe like by 1 or 2 skimmer sizes is going to give you the ability to pump more water if you want to. So going back to the design, what you can see here is the waterfalls. You can see the black pipe sticking out there. So I'm gonna have about a 6-foot stream, and that's gonna go into this really nice little goldfish pond. This is too small for koi. This is about 12 feet long and about 6 feet at its widest. So now if you want to prevent raccoons from eating your fish, you want to have your pond be wider than 6 feet, ideally. But where I do want to actually pinch down the diameter of the pond is going to be where the bridge is going to go.
So all of this black fabric that you see that goes on top of the soil is called underlayment fabric. And now what that's going to do is, besides giving the liner a little bit of breathing room, but it also cushions the liner from any teeny tiny little rocks or roots that will in the future find sort of the lowest point and therefore the water. That is very helpful. Now you also might notice that there is that other piece of fabric sort of near the rusty planter, and that's called concrete cloth. And the reason you'd want to use concrete cloth in this application for me is because I deal with rodents. And rodents, unfortunately, love to chew through liner in some cases. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Seeing as water features are investments, I like to have that be cheaper insurance. It's not cheap. And just use the concrete cloth in key areas or throughout the whole thing to prevent rodents from destroying your water feature. And so you can see that this liner, the rubber liner, looks totally different than the fabric. This is what's going to hold the water in for your water feature. But obviously looking at rubber liner alone is really ugly, not to mention the ecosystem aspect of if you were to just fill this up with water,
as you see here, it's actually going to be a big soupy green mess because the bacteria strains that make your ponds crystal clear can't actually attach themselves to rubber membrane. What they need is different types of wood and rocks and gravel and natural materials, which is what they evolved to sort of attach themselves to. And that's why ecosystem ponds are so crystal clear, is because although there is a mechanical filter and a dedicated biological filter, these ponds have an extreme amount of, basically like there's like a recipe for building a pond that is going to guarantee you crystal clear water in just about any climate. Well, any climate, actually. So as you can see here, the rocking in of the pond is kind of underway. So I am trying to bridge the gap in this design between a natural pond that you would see in a forest or a creek and adding in some contemporary elements. So the cinder blocks are actually going to support the bridge stones that I mentioned earlier. Now, here's the thing. Paver walls weigh a lot more. I don't understand the physics of this, but the paver walls weigh a lot more than boulders. So I suppose it's just basically the stacking and all that. But anyway, you're going to need to think about that weight and make sure that you don't just put those pavers right on top of the liner. So if you look carefully under the cinder blocks, you can see there's a product called Gator Base. And what that is it's basically like a piece of styrofoam that is very dense. And that is going to replace 4 inches of crusher run. So in essence, I don't need to add in any extra crusher run or anything except for these mats that are going to then distribute the weight of the paver walls where they need to go. And also, that being said, the reason that it's under the bridge stone is because, or the bridge cinder blocks, is because the bridge, each slab of cut flagstone probably weighed, oh geez, easily 100 pounds. It was just about, I barely could lift it. So I just wanted to dot my T's and cross my I's, you know what I mean, and make sure that the liner has no stress on it. You do not want to put the liner under any stress. All right, so you can see that the bridge stones have been placed and the rocking in of the back wall has been well underway. I actually had to re-record this segment because my mom called me and that just, anyway. Yeah, so the blue pot in the top left corner, I ended up, once I started to get freezing temperatures, taking that out because although it's supposed to be a frost-resistant pot, I'm pretty sure that the manufacturer, I think it's like Michael Carr, doesn't guarantee their pots if they have a guarantee if they're sitting in a pond. And I really don't want to take the chance. It's a beautiful piece of art, and in the future, probably what I would do if I were to do that is instead of having that pot be 5 or 6 inches underwater, I'd have it just be like 1 or 2, just enough to have the clay soak up the water. You can also see that the skimmer is installed at the on the right-hand side, and the liner is sort of flopped over that. And that is going to sort of dictate the level of the pond that you can keep it full to. So the next step is going to be to get the PVC pipe that you see, the black PVC behind the skimmer, and get that glued into the skimmer and make that watertight. And now that is an important thing to make sure that it doesn't leak. Really, all of these steps, making sure that they're done right, is an important thing to make sure that your pond is going to last the test of time. In fact, oftentimes it's better if you overbuild these ponds and then you rip them out because you want to make them bigger, not because they fail. So in this shot, you can see that I'm trying to showcase how there really is supposed to be 360 degrees of viewing angles, and basically to hear and see water flowing from just about anywhere that you are in the garden. So another thing that you're going to notice here is if you look in the top of the photo towards the center, basically all of the pond is rocked in with boulders except where the waterfall is going to come in. And now that is something that needs to have special consideration given just because the way that you rock that in is going to be different for basically instead of just having the rocks be structural and aesthetic. With a waterfall, you now have to take into account how the water is going to flow over those rocks and into the pond, and you don't want to have it look goofy. Woohoo! The pond is full of water. As you can see, the water is muddy. It's very seldom clear. In fact, I don't think I've ever built a pond that had clear water at the first fill up. Reason being is gravel, especially for whatever reason, is super dirty. And so if you want clear water from the get-go, you can pump out and refill that water feature. But generally, if you have filters that are going to do what they should, the filters should take care of all of that sediment in the water for you within probably 48 hours, ideally. The other thing you can do is there's a product called a flocculant. Well, there's a whole bunch of them. But flocculants is basically sold as water clarifier, and that will make particulates clump together. And unfortunately, if you think of like a COVID virus and how they have those little spokes, and so like the flocculant, what that does is it has all those little particulates sort of stick to all that, and then they sink to the bottom once they get heavy enough. The other thing that hopefully is becoming more evident is the visual continuity between the goldfish pond and the water feature, the little fountain bowl that I had installed back in 2023. That is one of the ways to get sort of a cohesive look to water features that are separate is to repeat elements, just like with garden design and repeating plants. So here you can see the skimmer filter, or maybe hopefully you can't, but looking closer here, the bolt off to the right that is at water level, that is just about the level of your pond. Like you don't want to have the skimmer filter be set too low or the water level set too high on that skimmer, because otherwise if you do, the pond is not going to skim. You need to have a certain amount of clearance between the top of that skimmer faceplate and the actual water level of your pond in order to get good surface tension, because that's basically the door on the inside of the skimmer is what creates the surface tension, and that's what makes your pond function. All right, what a boring picture to show that it is indeed time to start thinking of aquatic plants. So this plant here in the picture is an absolutely beautiful native plant that looks like it should be something that lives in the tropics. It's called Peltandra virginica, otherwise known as Arrow arum. It's a beautiful clumping plant that basically looks like some sort of elephant ear caladium hybrid. Absolutely beautiful, and as you can see, it was too root bound in its container to get out just by normal means. So unfortunately, that nice Plant Delights nursery pot that I like to reuse when possible had to get slid open. So I have a whole separate video on how to choose aquatic plants for your pond. There's different types such as marginals, which you can see at the right hand side of the screen, like the red stem Thalia, which is an absolutely beautiful subtropical plant. Probably hardy in zone 7 through into the tropics. I'm going to try to overwinter it here in zone 6, but I'm not going to hold my breath. The tropical plants in your pond are going to do something that the perennials, which are equally as important, can't. And perennials in colder zones tend to start to go dormant in September, believe it or not. Whereas the tropical plants, as long as there's sun and not frost, they will continue to pull nutrients out of the water and compete with algae. Another thing too regarding plants is that flowering plants, which use a lot of phosphorus and different types of phosphates, they are going to be best to compete with algae because the algae uses a lot of phosphate, just like flowering plants do to produce their beautiful flowers. So this is exciting. Waterfall construction is well underway. Well, it's underway. I don't know about well under. But you can see, if you look at the top of the picture here, that is going to be the biological filter. That is called a bio bowl. And basically that is a custom feature that is going to replace your traditional biofalls. I haven't used a ton of those in projects as far as like for the actual filter. So it's going to be interesting to see how it stacks up to an old-fashioned biofalls. Visually, it's amazing. I mean, it's going to give you the ability to make a waterfall that would be maybe like 15 inches tall be well over 2 feet tall, because you get the additional height of the bowl. But anyway, you can see that these rocks are called zebra rock, and it's a very jagged type of stone. So underneath every bit of liner, excuse my tongue slip, underneath the every single boulder, the liner is cushioned by an additional layer of fabric, and that is going to, again, just like having the fabric underneath protects liner from roots and pebbles and whatnot, having the fabric on top of the liner is going to protect the boulders, if they're sort of craggy, from poking holes in the liner over the long term. So as you can see, the waterfall here is operational, but clearly if you look at sort of the main falls between those two boulders in the middle, you can see that there's not a lot of water flowing over the rocks. And the reason for that is almost invariably when you build waterfalls, there's going to be gaps between those stones, and the water, of course, taking the path of least resistance, is going to go under the falls and basically go fully around it. So the way around that is to use what's called waterfall foam. And that is something that is very, well, how do I say this? It will stick to your nails. It'll stick to just about everything that it can, especially clothes. I have a pair of jeans that I've been doing this for long enough, and I had this rookie mistake this one day where I just knelt down into a big old pad of foam. And yeah, those are going to be designated for building water features. But yeah, so the foam is absolutely essential to make sure that the water goes over the stones and not throughout all the little crevices. Another thing that you might notice here is their main falls is actually, the spillway stone is actually slate. So there's tons and tons of different ways to artistically build a waterfall. I really enjoy the looks of having stacked slate sort of behind the waterfall. It creates a really nice effect, and usually a nice clean sheet of water. Maximize your pump velocity. So this picture really is just sort of stepping back and starting to get an idea of what it's actually going to be like to appreciate and live with this water feature. If you look to sort of like the left-hand third of the picture, you can see that between the chair and the ginger and the potted rosemary, you can see that perfect little veil falls that's visible from the table and from a couple different points inside, including the kitchen sink, which is very important. Doing dishes sucks, so you might as well make it a little bit better by having something that, at least if the windows are closed when it's cold out, you can watch the beautiful falls. So maximizing your view from inside is very important. It's also worth noting, I was trying to have this waterfall be quieter but yet increase the richness of sound, because there is the fountain bowl that is off to the right, sort of behind that elephant ear that you see. And this shot here, you can see the beautiful slim profile of those bridge stones, and it's really just another angle from the perspective of the headwaters of this pond. Of course, the water is still cloudy, so there's that, but it really does have a really nice sort of long creek-like effect to this waterfall, water feature, pond, goldfish pond. That should be a blooper. I'm keeping that. So take note of how thick the water is coming out of that fountain bowl. The other thing too is you can see here that has been foamed in fully, that waterfall, and the water is cleanly going over the top of the stones and not under. So now you can see that the water is clear. You can also see that some of the sediment, because I did use a flocculant, is actually sitting on top of the pavers and the various stones and gravel inside the pond. And the bacteria that if you're using a quality clear product like with Aquascape, they'll actually have some of the bacteria strains that will start to utilize some of that sediment, and it's actually going to start to become your biofilm. Now, I think water features are magical at night. You can say that is an extreme word or descriptor, but take a look at this video here, and if you've gotten this far in the vid, drop a comment down below and let me know. All right, enjoy this.
All right, y'all, I hope that you enjoyed the video. Hopefully now you have a bit better of an understanding of what it takes to put in the most enjoyable of water features, if I do say so, fish ponds. And of course, I would love to hear from y'all. So if you have gotten this far, drop it down in the comments.
My own mother doesn't even watch this far into the video.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Peace!